was trying to find me a charger because now my battery is dying, but we're gonna try to get through it.
Hi,
Okay.
It's Robin.
Hi, hi. Yeah, I see you talking about my Eagles.
That's right.
That's okay. That's okay. We have Monday night coming up, so
Yeah, they flexed it.
we're
Seahawks.
going. We
So
gonna
are
get.
you in Pennsylvania, Robin?
I am. I'm right outside of Philadelphia. I'm in Lansdowne, Pennsylvania, and so
Excellent.
like if I go up the street and around the corner, I'm in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I grew up outside of Harrisburg in the Carlisle area.
Okay. Okay. Well, then we friends
Right.
then. Well, thank you. Thank you, Dave and Mike, for allowing me to be on. Thank you, Aaron.
Mhm.
Like I said, I hope my battery doesn't die. But so I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
I've been in this credit space now almost this coming March will be 2 years. I began last year just wanting to fix my own credit.
Mhm.
I joined one of those credit groups on Facebook, and I heard them say, look up Dave Cousins. And so I did that, and then I started following Dave, and I started doing a lot of things that he put in his content, and a lot of it like worked, like a lot of it. And so now I'm basically, well, first of all, I've cleaned up everything. I have one thing left on my report that I'm trying to get off, and I just want to know. I mean, because I'm not the one to take no for an answer. So, when they say verify, okay, prove it to me. But I just want to know if I'm using the information the right way, or if I'm using it in the right contents. So, from what my understanding is, that you can get anything deleted from your credit report, including open accounts. I have a car note, and I don't want it on my credit report. And so I've sent them like 3 letters asking them to remove the account from my credit report. And so I'm not saying that, I'm not going to pay. I'm just saying that I don't want the account reported. And so I based it off of the Graham-Leach-Bailey Act. And as far as them giving me my disclosures, letting me know, or giving me the opportunity to opt out of this information being reported. So I put that in the letters to them. And each time they sent a response back saying, we are reporting this account correctly, and it's going to continue to report. And so now, so I want to know, A, did I use the right information when I sent them the letter? And B, can this be deleted from my credit report?
Well, Robin, you bring up some really important points that we're about to talk about. So, number one, anything can be deleted.
Okay.
Because I'm going to explain to you what the dispute process actually looks like behind the scenes. That's the good news.
Okay.
The bad news is, no, you don't have a proper basis to get that deleted. That act doesn't say that. And more importantly, your contract with your car note company requires credit reporting. And unless they report inaccurate or incomplete information about that account, there's nothing we're going to be able to do legitimately based on the law. But let me explain how, when I say that anything can be removed, because when I describe to you all what actually happens behind the scenes when you dispute something, it's going to make you fall out of your chair.
Okay.
So let me give a real quick 10,000 foot view of what it means when you dispute. Okay. So there's 4 to 5 primary methods that you can dispute right now. You can send a letter You can do it on the phone. You can send a fax. You can do it through the CFPB. And you can also do it through the FTC in certain circumstances.
Okay.
So I send a letter, a phone call, fax, something to these bureaus. Let me explain this process. So I can send a 20-page letter, and they're still going to distill it down to 3 characters. I can send a 6-minute voice, conversation about what's going on. Every dispute is categorized by these companies down to 3 characters. It's usually a letter and then 2 digits, 2 numbers. And that's supposed to tell what your dispute's about.
Right.
And so what happens is all your information gets down to those 3 characters. And that's done by a computer. Right now, it's done by a lot of AI. Before they were sending stuff overseas, and they still do that, which I'm going to explain. So you start a dispute. You say, hey, I don't want this on my credit report. I don't give you permission. I'm opting out. And again, that's not what that statute says. But nonetheless, a computer read that information and took it down to a letter and 2 digits. And then it ships that 3-digit code to the computer that's furnishing the information. That's the debt collector or the car note company. And all it does, its computer looks at those same 3 pieces of information and says, oh no, yeah, we're reporting right, and shoots an information, just an information signal back that says, okay, verify. And usually that's just 1 digit, like a 1 or a 2 or 3. There's seldom any human involvement. There's no concerning review of the information. It's almost always automated. So that's the reason why real disputes that have real validity, if there's an ID theft issue or past statute of limitations or you settled an account, that's why they verify everything, is because it's almost always just one computer talking to another. Now, the reason why I ultimately said it can be deleted is because those systems get overwhelmed. And when the computer queues fill up, it does get sent to live agents in the Philippines or in India and some other countries, but they're all overseas. And that's only when there's an overflow. Those people make mistakes. They might look at a letter and say, hey, that looks impressive. She cited a statute, and just hit the delete button because they're getting paid 37 cents an hour and they don't care. So that's why I started by saying everything can be deleted, because depending on the person or the computer or the process, that's going to determine who is actually doing the quote investigation. And this is the funny part. The law says you have to perform a reasonable investigation.
Right.
Well, how is that reasonable when it's just one computer talking to another about 3 digits? So great question, Robin. It allowed me to kind of talk about the dispute process. It is set up to fail. It's why I have a job, because if all the disputes worked, I couldn't sue them. But yeah, the system is set up to just agree with the original reporter. And let's talk about why. Do you know how Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, they make their money? Have you ever paid them?
I believe I know how. Yeah, they make their money because companies pay them to report the information.
Amen, Robin. It's like we set that up before tonight. That's exactly right. They make a little bit of money when you pay them for those monitoring products that you should never do, by the way. Never, ever. But we can talk about that in a minute, but never enter an agreement with these companies, because they're going to make you arbitrate. They're going to sneak fine print against you. That's going to take rights away from you. But yeah, they make their money, the billions of dollars, because Capital One is paying them 10, 20, $30 million a year. Every time Capital One sends them information about you, they have to pay them a little bit of money. So who are they going to agree with? If you reach out to them and say, I'm right, Capital One's wrong, but Capital One is paying them $10 million a year, are they going to agree with you? Or are they going to agree with their partner? So the system's set up to fail. It's why lawyers like me are so important, to get connected to people like you and consumers and other, people like Dave and Mike, because the system's set up to fail. And as a consumer, you're going against billion-dollar corporations who hire $1,000 an hour lawyers who have glass mansion firms in the biggest cities in the world. And it's David versus Goliath. But yeah, they don't make their money from me or you. They make their money from the company. So of course they agree with them.
Right.
Set up to fail. So
Okay. So I'm trying to like get my other question in before my battery because I'm literally on red.
all right.
Okay. So with that being said, right? So Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. What about check systems? So check systems, I know they're a specialty, credit reporting agency, and so to get out of check systems, you go through the dispute process. And so, what if you've disputed, and they send you a copy of the contract from the bank, but the account is charged off?
Great question.
So how do you get that off?
So it kind of goes back to my previous answer. It depends on the nature of what they're reporting. So you brought up a really good point. So everyone knows about the big three credit reporting agencies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. They're the ones that everyone's most familiar with. But what might shock you is there's over 250 credit reporting agencies.
Mm-hmm. I know that.
And actually there's significantly more depending on how you want to look at it. But there's credit reporting agencies about whether you've ever slipped and fallen in a supermarket and sued someone. Every insurance claim that you make, there's a credit report about you. Mm-hmm. Every checking account, savings account, those are called demand deposit accounts. Mm-hmm. There are credit reports about you, and check systems is one of them. Mm-hmm. And so think of check systems just like the big three, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. When you open your account with your bank, all that fine print gave them the right contractually to report to check systems or to anyone they want to, frankly. Okay. And the law says as long as they report accurately and completely, there's nothing we can do about it. So if the information they're reporting to check systems is accurate and complete, other than the description I gave earlier, when someone gets overworked or it slips through the cracks, you confuse them enough that your dispute looks legitimate and then someone deletes it. It just goes back to the law says they're allowed to report as long as there's a basis for them to. And that basis is always going to be some contract, generally speaking, or you fall behind in debt, like a medical debt doesn't necessarily have a contract, but the law also says in order to debt collect, they can use a credit report. So that's how you get collections on credit reports. There's no contract necessarily, but the law allows them to do that. So the basis of any type of dispute, whether it's check systems, fishing license credit report, which exists, by the way. If you ever overfished a lake and taken too many, you take 8 bass when you're only allowed to take 6. There's a credit report that says this person, if they ever want to get a fishing license in your state, you may not want to give them that. So, but no matter what, background checks, your big three credit reports. I saw someone put in the chat here, LexisNexis. They are a massive credit reporting agency, particularly about insurance mostly. But any of these, the basis to dispute has to be the information is inaccurate, incomplete, or too old and can't be reported. Unless it's one of those three things, you got to get lucky.
Okay. And then one more. Early warnings. That's the same as check system? It
is. Yep.
Okay.
They're a specialty demand deposit reporting agency. That's exactly right.
Okay. So inaccurate, incomplete.
Or too old, so if it's over 7 years for bad information, 10 years for a bankruptcy, that would be the third reason why.
Okay.
Well,
Robin, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Robin.
I appreciate
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Dave and Mike.
All right. You're welcome. Good questions, Robin. All right. Hey, Dave, I'm going to run through some more of these questions. Aaron, are you good?
I'm good. This is great. I'm excited.
Hey, Mike, ask one of them questions out of the documents because student loan.
I forgot. All right. Hey, Robin, you sticking around with us?
You know what? I'm making some collard greens for a company potluck tomorrow, so I'm gonna check on my collard greens, but I'll be right back. But I'm still gonna listen in. But you can take my face off.
Okay.
All right. Hey, Aaron. So a question is, if a client got their student loan forgiven by Biden's plan, but the company still put a 30-day late on a credit report, is that a violation of the FCRA?
Maybe. And that's a famous lawyer answer, or it depends. That's a real famous one, is responding it depends. It depends on when the late occurred. So if the late occurred prior to the settlement or prior to when it was forgiven, it sucks, but they can go back and put bad information in the past in. If they put a missed payment or late payment after it was forgiven, well, that's of course wrong, because you can't owe a payment and then miss a payment after it has been forgiven. So it is, and I hate this rule because a lot of companies will do this. After you resolve with them, you settle it or they forgive it, they do a final accounting, on their side. And sometimes that adds information to your credit report, because that final accounting is a final summary of the whole account. And so if you missed a payment 4 years ago, it may only pop up now when you finally close it, because they do a final review and they submit the final round of information back. So it could be the case that this person had their student loan forgiven. That student loan company did the final reconciliation of that account, and that made an old missed payment pop up. Unfortunately, if it's within 7 years and that payment was legitimately missed, there's nothing we can really do about that. But if they forgive a debt and then mark you late afterwards, that's of course wrong. We do that case all the time. We talked earlier with Lisa, if, you settle with an account, they can't mark you late for the next owed payment, but that happens too. So really it depends. So we just need to know a little bit more about that particular question. If it was a legitimate missed 30, 60, 90, all the way up to 180 in the past, it's accurate. There's not much we can do unless it's older than 7 years, or they marked you late after they forgive it. That's a big problem.
Okay. Yeah, I think this guy said he was in forbearance and they still marked him late.
So that's different. That could be a good case. So when you're in forbearance, you don't owe money. That's what a forbearance agreement is. So if we can prove in writing the period of that forbearance, we might be able to help with that case.
Okay. And that's a good segue to the next question. Dave, you got something before I ask? Okay. Somebody asked, what are some ways that we can prove our violations?
Okay. So glad you asked that question. And it's going to be a good thing for me to talk about generally. One important thing to understand is there is a big difference between what a lawyer can do in litigation and what is successful in credit reporting and credit disputing world and credit repair. So in a court of law, which we're going to be suing in mostly federal court, we have to prove ironclad. So I'm so glad that question got asked, which means don't throw away any mail. If we're working with you, don't throw away mail from debt collectors, don't throw away mail from creditors, landlords, what have you. The credit reporting agencies, if you get mail from them, because by the way, if you hire an attorney or hire a credit repair, group, and they dispute for you, the law still says the results come back to the consumer directly. So even though I may send a letter on a consumer's behalf, the consumer is going to get the result. So the best way to prove these violations is to always keep the evidence. Let's talk about other types of violations, right? So let's say it's a phone call and a debt collector is rude and aggressive and makes threats or swears at you. Well, two things. One is that call is going to be recorded on their end. I can guarantee it. The other thing is in your state, which check your state, you may have the right to record them. For example, in Florida is what's called a two-way recording state. So I can't record someone unless I tell them. But everyone knows you get that phone call and it says, this call may be monitored for quality assurance or training purposes. That is a notice to you that they may record, so you automatically have the right to record in the state of Florida. You don't even have to ask or tell them because they have already told you, hey, I might be recording you. You can record them. So that's another important thing. Don't throw out mail, don't delete voicemails. Don't delete your call history, and your call log, because if we're going to sue debt collectors, we have to prove what they did. We either need the letter that they shouldn't have sent you, that phone call that's going to be recorded. If someone's rude to you on the phone, just take notes, and write a little date next to it. Because in a court, if I say, hey, my client took contemporaneous handwritten notes, you can see it on this notepad, it's dated that day at the same time as the phone call, who are they going to believe? They're going to believe the consumer with these notes, or are they going to believe the debt collector saying, oh, I never threatened that. Oh, and by the way, we lost the phone recording somehow, which always happens. But how we prove these things is through evidence. And that evidence is don't throw anything out, keep notes, don't delete voicemails, especially the mail. And then prove the violations for the credit reporting. That really depends on the nature of the dispute. If you're saying I didn't pay late and they marked me late, well, show me your clear check. Show me the payment that you submitted through the online portal on the 29th day. Sometimes these companies get greedy, right? You have 30 days to generally pay until they mark you late. Well, companies have been sued for send the payment on the 29th day. Well, guess what? It goes to the bottom of their pile. So by the time they get to, it's been 32 days. They can't do that, right? So we would have to prove, hey, I postmarked the payment this date and so on and so forth. But if it's ID theft, we have to prove you didn't take out these loans. If it's I settled this account, we have to prove you paid that settlement. The proof is always going to be in the pudding, but it's just keep the evidence, don't throw anything out, keep good notes, it will be golden. Great question.
All right. Hey,